Peace and bliss, peace and bliss, peace and bliss. I have to tell you this. Welcome, tribe. Wishing you all a very peace and present bliss. I hope that we are all here and we are feeling empowered. I hope that we're all present in this moment, feeling inspired. I hope that we are motivated to step into that greatest version of ourselves on today. Please say hello as you guys are entering so that I may wish you peace and bliss back. I'm excited to share this time and share this space with you guys as we dive into another one of our lives, Christ Conscious Coaching with Darryl. And today I want to discuss life after death. I invite you to share this video out to anyone who you think may be curious about my perspective on life after death. This is a very exciting topic for me because I haven't really done a video where I've explained my perspective of life after death. So a lot of things that I'm going to share with you all today are going to be things that I'm going to be hearing verbally for the first time myself. So I'll probably have to watch this video and after, and be able to actually interpret the information for myself. Whitney, peace and bliss to you, Queen, from Philadelphia. So the reason why I want to dive into this topic is because I think that it's relevant to the new shifts in consciousness that I'm sure a lot of my followers, as well as those in our planet, have been experiencing. And so I'm excited to just dive into this and just kind of share a couple of things that I've observed from my experiences of being reincarnated back into this experience. I am an individual who, when I had my spiritual awakening, I gained access to my memories that, if I had to put it in layman's terms, the memory of my previous lives, as well as the memories of the experience that takes place after death and the restarting process of life. And I think that this experience that we have, that we call life and death, I think that these things are very unique towards the individual. And here's why I say that. What I've currently have realized is that each individual on this experience uses or has a template in their mind that they use to help guide them in life. They have some type of reference point in their experience that helps them use the template that they have in their mind to help maneuver and flow and orchestrate things in this current experience. And so I believe that the world outside of this present world operates under that same mechanism of having a template that each individual soul is operates on based on what's most comfortable for them. And through that lens of that template, they experience their reality. So I can only share life after death based on my template. And so my goal with sharing this is that you can use how I'm describing my template and formulate possibly your own template to maybe help you find some more resonance or understanding in what you may believe may take place after death. Sophie, peace and bliss to you. Connie, please, peace and bliss to you. Sharing this video out right now. Just bear with me for about a few moments. So, as we're diving into this, it's so important that we first look at what it means to be alive and what it means to die. Before we can dive into what happens after death, it's pretty decent that we understand what death actually represents in this experience. And so I'm going to share that. So for me personally, the death experience signifies a completion of a cycle. I believe that when we enter into these experiences, into these different worlds, we are entering into these worlds for a cycle. And I believe that we enter into a world for those cycles to enable other possible beings and spirits to come in through that same cycle, so that everyone can get a chance to experience that space or that plane fairly and equally. And so the space outside of time, which is life after death, is it has order. It's got structure. And so the order and structure of the upper realms can oftentimes be viewed as a mirror reflection of the order and structure on the lower realms, except maybe just a little bit more complex, right? And so very similar to the systems that we have down here, there's a process towards getting into a location, being Earth. And so there is a way to experience, there's a way to kind of backtrack what that process would look like if you can tap into these those frequencies within yourself consciously. For me, that time was viewed or represented to me as a simulation. And so the way that I viewed my incarnation experiences, my multiple incarnation experiences, is that once I died, I'm essentially able to realize, like it's almost like I'm able to visualize my consciousness being pulled from this body, and it actually travels through what would look like wires, right? So imagine the way that technology, or imagine the way that energy or electricity looks when you can see it, the electricity shooting in a wire that's like in a cord that's connected to something. So when you die, on the outside, all you're really seeing is a spark of light travel from one end of a cord back to this central networking station. And so when you come out on the other side is when you start seeing all the belief systems that you thought of death like instantly fall off. Like everything that you thought, if an individual believes in heaven or hell is just based on the condition of your household before you logged into this experience. And so we began to see how much of an illusion the world that we call Earth really was, or really is. And essentially, you also remember the original reason why you went into that world. Right? Now, what I've come to realize is that we typically only have access to be able to view things through that lens when we have removed or adjusted our default settings of the simulation. Okay? What are these default settings? Well, you have a default setting that recycles you through the simulation until you become aware of the feature to turn off that default. So if you are unaware that you have that feature consciously, and if you not have embodied that vibration while you were in the game, embodied that consciousness while you were in the game, then when you die, kind of going back to the example, you see a spark of light shooting out of this cord, and essentially it automatically circles that spark of light back into the simulation. And so if there are people who believe in extraterrestrials or people who believe they are starseeds, a lot of starseeds came from higher dimensions of awareness, aka they chose to log into the game of Earth. However, when they got to Earth, because there were people already logged in who were bringing down the consciousness of the people here, when the higher dimensional beings came, they forgot that they had the ability to turn the feature off that causes them to recycle and reincarnate. And this is actually what the Bible calls the mark of the beast, which is the 666. So 6 is the number of man. So repeated 6 means repeated man, which is like imagining a video game where you have 3 lives or infinite lives. So the alchemical symbol for a life where that keeps on recycling is 666. And so this was actually a protocol that was put in place by the system, by the earth, by you, so that you could not, because this game, this system, right, this game that we call life is very serious, and it has a lot of things that we have to be aware of when we enter into the game. For example, if you log into this game and you lose consciousness and then you log out, you are now logged out at a lower level of consciousness than when you logged in, and you cannot get that consciousness back. So the system created the 666 program, the reincarnation program, so that when an individual incarnated on Earth and they started losing and forgetting who they were, they started going into dark timelines and experiencing multiple lifetimes where they forgot who they were and they forgot their power and strength, the 666 program gave people the ability to come back and pick up old parts of their life and pick up old parts of their consciousness until they got it right. And the reason why this was in place was because of love, because of unconditional love. You know, it's funny, even when I was a Christian, I always found it odd that, you know, based on my Christian beliefs, that God gave us one lifetime to figure everything out, and if we didn't figure it out, then we would burn in hell forever. I was like, it seems like that doesn't quantify for me how God gives us, say, maybe 100 years of life if someone lives that long. Most people don't, but let's say He gave us 100 years of life to figure things out. But if we don't figure it out in 100 years, then we have to experience an infinite amount of those 100 years in hell forever. That didn't seem very unconditional loving to me. For me, it seemed more unconditionally loving for a God to give you as many times to figure it out as you need to. To let you fall short, come back. Fall short, keep trying. Fall short until you figure it out. And you can take as long as you need to figure it out. For me, that showed more unconditional love. So it kind of helped connect that and embody truth into my experience. So for me, being an evolved soul in this experience, I turned my default programming off a long time ago. Well, yeah, I guess that's an easy way of putting it. And so what happens once you turn the default programming off? Well, once you turn off your default programming, you can, so imagine when the default programming is on and you die. The second you die, imagine you jump to a screen that looks like the main menu of the game. And then imagine the game automatically presses start all over again. Automatically picks a character for you all over again, and then logs you into the game all over again. Right? That's what happens when you don't have consciousness of that default program. Once you do have consciousness of it and you die, when you die, you go back to the main screen. On that main screen, you have a choice of whether you can press start or not, whether you want to press start or not. Then once you press start and you have the character creation screen, you actually have a conscious awareness of how you want to create your character. So you can design your character a lot more attractive. You can design your character with a lot more physical features that are more appealing. You can design your character with beautiful smiles based on what it is you are trying to accomplish when you log into the game. So, let's see. I think I've covered everything I've wanted to cover up until this point. I think that this is important to realize that the simulation that we're inside of is a training mechanism, almost a tool. It's a simulation. It's almost like, imagine in the future we created, so imagine we look at how long and how many lifetimes it took for us to gain consciousness. Or imagine even as humanity as a collective, right? Imagine how long it takes for a human collective to become a mature consciousness to where we can stop fighting, have collective unity, oneness. We're transitioning into it right now. But if you're a higher dimensional being, this is the past for you, which is why this is the past for me, which is why I understand the system so well. And so imagine that you have teachers whose jobs are to birth higher dimensional beings and raise higher dimensional beings like a school system would. But imagine the futuristic school system is a matter of you entering into a video game, because it has to be fun, where you enter into a simulation that really doesn't harm you at all, but it grows you up and allows you to experience multiple lifetimes of wisdom, multiple lifetimes of things you thought were the right thing to do, things you thought were the wrong thing to do. It allows you to get out all of your urges, all of your desires, and allowed you to go through this rapid period of evolving. But while you're in the game, it seems like life is going on forever. That's always how it happens when you go into lower dimensions of time. Time slows down. So we enter into a third dimensional space, which is a simulation, which is a video game. It's no different than if you were experiencing life as a character inside of your PlayStation or inside of your Xbox. This is what it would look like. So there's a version of you that's outside of this experience playing you right now. And that's our higher self. So it's about us being connected to our higher self so that we can log in and log out whenever we want to. If we're not connected to our higher self, then we'll actually just believe that this game is all that we have. And then that'll serve true for us, and we'll never be able to log ourselves back out of the game. Or you'll just keep spending time in the game until you want to leave. Now, not many people get a chance to come back into this game, into the simulation, because the simulation is for younger souls. The only people who choose to come back into this simulation are one of three people. One, if you are a young soul and you're coming into the system for the first time, then you're in the system. Two, if you're a teacher of the simulation, where your job is to allow people to struggle for a long time in the simulation, because the teacher is always quiet during the test. And then they show up to help people graduate and to make sure that everyone in the simulation graduates, because we have a very strict no spirit left behind policy. So we make sure that no one's left behind. Connie commented and said, how does that work with parallel realities? Several versions of us in the game. It's a beautiful question, Connie. Let me explain. So a parallel reality is just a possibility. In this game, the possibilities are infinite. So there's infinite versions of you existing on infinite timelines of you simultaneously. Your consciousness is what attracts your present timeline. The vibration that you hold inside of you captures the present timeline. So it captures a snapshot of the infinite timelines, and it materializes the one that materializes the timeline of the frequency that you're vibrating on. Scott Kieran says, time is relative, ? Time is extremely relative. That is the reason why this simulation is taking multiple lifetimes for people to graduate. But on the outside realm, it's probably maybe been an hour in your actual classrooms or your homes. And so this is where we kind of get into starseed history, where if you are a starseed, then really you're just a bigger human that lives in a neighborhood, or is so we talk about like planets and being from a different planet, but on the outside realm, being from a different planet is like being from a different city. Again, it's a lot smaller, but it is a lot bigger than we think. And so it's like, you could say I'm Pleiadian, but to your higher self, it just means you live on Pleiadian Street, and as opposed to your friend who lives on Lyran Street. But when you go into the game and you guys log in, you guys are these beings from different planets, or different households. And so this is how the higher dimensional beings view lineage. Connie comments and says, so I could jump to another timeline to experience another version of myself, consciousness. Yes, we are jumping timelines every second of the day. It's just we're not conscious of it all the time. When we become conscious of it, we can travel further, but we're always traveling in consciousness. We essentially are, because we live life and we're guided by our feelings and emotions. Our feelings and emotions are the vibrations that are creating the timelines for us, or attracting the timelines that are already present, excuse me. And so when we feel something and then that feeling changes, we're changing timelines. Well, when we feel something and that feeling changes, and then based on how that feeling's changed, we direct and set a new intention. That changes your timeline. So everyone changes timelines. The most experienced time travelers are those who are conscious of it, are those who are able to identify the vibration inside of them that they want to feel, search for the vibration inside of them like a catalog almost, how they want to feel, and then once they find it, they click the X on their controller, and then they embody it, and that helps them jump straight to the timeline that they want to be on. And so, we have a spectrum of those who don't even understand what time travel is, and we have those who travel to new timelines consciously very frequently. A lot of people who have success stories where they blew up from nothing, or they had a one-hit wonder. Most of the time, these one-hit wonders were people who understood how to shift their consciousness, and they made one change of a consciousness, and they jumped to the timeline that they wanted to be on. And then instantly they were able to access the success that they wanted. And so these are the things that this simulation is designed to teach us. And so there are certain people that are more aware that this experience is here to teach us than others. There are others who believe that this game is all there is. And all there is Earth. And all there is what we have in front of us. And that is true for you if you believe it. And you can believe it for as long as you want to, as there's no rules to this game. This game is for you to enjoy. So if you're in this experience and you enjoy being in the game and you want to be in this space forever, then you're a young soul. But that's normal. That's okay. Every young soul, I at one point wanted to be in this experience forever. And then you grow up, and as you spiritually mature, you begin to have new hungers and bigger hungers, and then you want to be on multiple worlds. You want to go travel to different worlds. Then you want to be on multiple worlds simultaneously, and then you get into even more stuff. But it's like children. It's like raising a child. It's like you can look at your household as a child as being heaven for you if your room has got all the video games you want. If you like how your room is set up, if you like the way your parents are and all that stuff, then you'll never want to leave that space. But over time, your spirit, you naturally grow, and so when you naturally grow, you naturally start wanting different things. You naturally start wanting more. I think one of the biggest misconceptions of our experience is, the idea or belief system that we are only one lifetime. I think that when we believe that we are only one lifetime, we limit all of the knowledge and all the information and all the data that we've accumulated in every lifetime. For me, it's like saying, it's like imagining going to school where we've got 12 years of school, but you're deciding to only give credit to the last year that you were in school. You're saying, yep, my 12th grade year, that's where I learned everything. I learned everything in my 12th grade year, It was really just 1 year, and this 1 year is all life that we have, and after that there's no more school ever, and there never was any school prior to me being in the 12th grade. To me, that's how I view not understanding reincarnation, or not understanding that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred or moved. Or even if you're taking it to a Christian route, God says that before you stepped into the womb, I knew you, which means you had individuality, you had an individual essence before you entered into this 3D container of this lifetime, before you were able to actually read the words that were actually in the Bible. And so I think it's so much power in just becoming aware of it, because again, once we become aware of the feature, then when we do die, we don't have to automatically be inserted back into this game if we don't want to. Now, there are a lot of beings that are here that are teachers. Now, if you are here and you are a teacher, then that means that you choose to come back into this experience yearly, semesterly. So it's like you enjoy being a teacher. So you've got certain parents that are extremely happy when their children get the hell out of their house. They're like, oh my God, thank God I finally get a break. But then you've got certain parents that choose to, be teachers, that choose to be counselors, that choose to be coaches, that choose to be around kids even though they've raised their own kids. And so there are people who choose that even though they've raised their own consciousness, they choose to help people raise their consciousness. And so those people, again, like school, they spend most of their time in the system, in the matrix, in the world, on earth. But they also have the freedom of leaving when they choose to. But in order to choose to, you have to remember that you are a teacher and that you have the choice. Otherwise, you'll think that you are a person that grew up in this simulation. And so, I really just wanted to create a basic template to create some type of understanding, or a way for us to imagine how the death process could look. This is my template. This is the way that my death process has looked to me and for me. Also, one thing to note is that the all-powerful God, you don't see that essence when you die, because what you realize is that, like, we're in this experience, and there is a all-powerful. However, that all-powerful has so many fractals of itself that separate itself from Earth, that, like, imagine like the all-powerful means existing on the 100th floor, and then like Earth is on the 3rd floor. So it's like, yes, there is an all-powerful God. However, when you die, you don't necessarily get connected to that all-powerful God, because that's still 96 floors above you. So you've got so 99% of the time, actually, because of where consciousness has been for our human collective, the God that most humans fathom, there are multiple of those gods in the upper realms. And some of those gods are here as well. Most ascended masters have the power of the God that most people pray to today. And most ascended masters are back now to help the planet ascend. Because again, everything that you can fathom right now is all coming from your higher self. It's all like, there's nothing outside of your brain. Even your imagination, the things that you think you never thought of before, the things you think you haven't seen before, you have. You just haven't seen them consciously in this linear lifetime. And so even as you use all your power to construct a God in your head, it's like it's only limited to the consciousness you have access to presently. So it's like you don't even know that you are a version that is more powerful than the God that you're praying to. Sounds so blasphemous, doesn't it? That is the power of the great I am. So to summarize, I just want to make sure I covered the things that I wanted to talk about. We talked about, the process of death. We talked about death being the end of a cycle. I actually want to dive into that a splidget more. So death being the end of a cycle. So again, imagine school. Imagine Earth being a school. Death is like you're out of school for that year, right? So doesn't necessarily mean you graduated, but definitely means you're out of school for that year. You don't know if you graduated or not until you come. Well, I'm getting a little bit complicated into it, but it's because now you enter into the different levels of which people graduate. Because you could, again, you can graduate just by, like, certain people graduate just by recognizing that there's a default button or a default switch that keeps them from recycling their earthly experience. That's like the basic level of graduation. That's like graduating high school. And then once you graduate college, that's like where you have realized there's an off switch. You turned it off, but then you recognize that there's stuff that you actually want to continue to learn. And so because you want to continue to learn it, you chose to come back into this experience. But even though you had an intention of what you wanted to learn, we came back into the experience and you forget your memory, but let me stop right there. You forget your memory. So you have to journey back to the place of consciousness that you were at just so you can learn the thing that you needed to learn to come here. And so a lot of people who want to leave this experience because they don't like this experience, I've experienced this myself where I've left the experience because I said I didn't want to be here anymore. And then when I left the experience, I came back out of it. And then when I had my collective consciousness together, I started thinking back to the thing that I wanted to accomplish and the knowledge and information that I wanted to have. And it required me to go back. It brought me back to the same solution of, you have to go back into the system. And so we have to realize that, a lot of starseeds don't believe that, or believe that like they were enslaved here or entrapped here, or they didn't necessarily want to come here. But it's like when we were in a timeless space, when we were in a space where we had infinite amount of time to decide what we wanted to do, if we wanted to come in and have this experience, if we wanted to be a source for creation, we had all these choices, and we could have said no this particular time. But there was something that you actually wanted to learn. There was something where in that infinite space, you decided to say, okay, what is the thing that I want to learn most right now? What is the thing that I cannot continue with life with until I feel like I need to learn this? And once you identified that thing, you chose to come in and incarnate to Earth. And so no matter what, even if you hate your experience when you got here, when you leave, you're just going to remember what you needed again and come back here again. So the quickest way to actually move through our experiences is to simply remove our judgment of our experience and then simply understand why. We seek to understand why. And when we seek to understand why, we shed so much programming. We shed so much hurt, so much pain that we were holding on to, because now we don't reject what's happening to us. We only choose to accept and understand why. And I think this is what makes a mature being, is that when a mature being can understand, a higher conscious being can understand that everything that's happening is a byproduct of something that being has attracted in some way, shape, or form. Then that being knows that if it wants to be a master of its reality, if it wants to control its reality, then it must become aware and understand how it attracted these things. And so only through becoming aware of how it attracted these things can it gain control over the attraction process. And that's where we become masters of our reality. I hope this helps anyone, everyone, all ones, all alls. I love you guys. I like you guys. I like you all. I'm still running my special for healing sessions. So if you have anything that you would like to fast track your healing for, depression, anxiety, anger, if you have trouble unlocking your purpose, or identifying how you can amount to your highest good, I would love to help you on your journey. Send me a message in my DM, and I love you guys. Peace.